This is USCHO Weekend Review. And here is your host, Ed Trefsker.
Welcome to USCHO Weekend Review for Monday, November 3rd, 2025. I'm Ed Trefsker alongside Jim Conley and Derek Schooley. Well, gentlemen, another crazy weekend. I know we all had very busy ones in our own way, but in the college hockey world, number 3 Western Michigan, they had a split in their series with St. Cloud State. They lost on Saturday 5-1 after winning on Friday 6-5. So a split on the weekend, but the other thing is they gave up 5 goals in each game.
I think maybe that's what's concerning to me is the fact that they're allowing so many. I saw them a few weeks ago when they swept Lowell, and the defense was their strong point, goaltending was their strong point. To see St. Cloud put up goals the way that they did this weekend, and then that's a pretty decisive win on a Saturday night to close out that series and salvage the sweep. The split for the Huskies, but I'm a little worried. I think Western Michigan's easily one of the best teams in the country, but when you're giving up that many goals, and it's going to become a theme this week. There's just a lot of good teams that are allowing a lot of goals right now.
Oh, I did the research because I was driving a lot this weekend to watch games, watch my daughters play, recruit, all that. So I did some research in the car. Western, when I got the show notes, Western last year, the most they gave up was 8 goals. They did it twice, back-to-back weekends. Arizona State, when they were 12th in the nation, they gave up 8 goals. They won 1 in overtime and lost on the road in Tempe, and they gave up 8 when they beat North Dakota, the 18th ranked Fighting Hawks, 6-4, and then they lost 4-3 in overtime at home. And the only other close time that they did it was at the Great Lakes Invitational, where they gave up 7, where they won 4-3 against Tech, and they lost 3-1. I'm sorry, they gave up 6. They lost 3 to Michigan State. And they've already done that now twice in 2 weekends, or in 3 weekends of the regular season. They gave up 7 to Ferris. They shut it down against Lowell. They gave up 6 to Michigan, and now they gave up 10. So that's a trend that's alarming. 3 times already they've given up 6 when it barely happened at all last year. So you look at 3 of the last 4 weekends, they've given up 6+. That's alarming, like you said, Jimmy.
I mean, I guess as a coach, when you're in that situation, do you worry if you're getting the results? My gut feeling would be yes. You're still worried when you're defensively not shutting things down, especially when I think about the fact that I thought Western Michigan rode their defense, rode their goaltending to the national championship.
But you're saying you're getting the results? You say you got goalied in the 3-2 loss against Ferris. That's the Ferris's 1 win. So you say you got goalied in that game. That was a quote that first used, right, to you.
Yep.
But now you're starting to split series. You split against Michigan. You split against St. Cloud. When does that become a theme? I guarantee you're doing D-zone coverage galore this weekend in practice. You're working on everything that involves D-zone because you're giving up 10, and you're not. I mean, it's not going to get any easier. You got a hungry Denver team coming in, and Denver is going to have to get right sooner or later. And then you got a surprise Miami team coming in that to me, it was a big surprise that what they did against Arizona State this weekend.
Well, the craziness and the concern continued for number 5 Boston University, swept in Orono by Maine. Now, there was a get things right weekend for Maine after losing 3-2 and winning 3-2 in overtime to Colgate the weekend before. 5-4 in overtime and 8-5. And Jim, you see a lot of Hockey East. Is there a goaltending issue at BU right now?
Quite possibly. Mikhail Yegorov came in at the break last year. He made his debut against Boston College. And I believe it was a 1-0 loss in that game. He played really well. throughout the entire season, carried that team to the national championship game. Suddenly, it does feel like maybe he doesn't have his fastball right now. I went back and looked at some of the goals he gave up on Friday night. Big rebounds or just goals he kind of wanted back, ones that he gets off his angles. I mean, Maine does a lot of things well in front of the net. They redirect pucks really well. They take away eyes. I called the game on Saturday up there, and he was pulled after 3, and he just didn't look good. The second goal is one he should have stopped. I think it went off his glove and trickled. Everything. It was bad rebounds. It was bad rebound control. So yeah, I think BU has certainly something to be concerned about. Maine, you called it a get-right weekend, and scoring goals is wonderful, but they also allowed 9 goals in a weekend that they get a sweep. And I know Ben Barr, a little bit concerned. He did not play Alvin Boya on Saturday night. He decided to give him a rest, saying that it's, sometimes goaltenders that play a lot just do need a rest, and he had faith in his backup. So you get the 2 wins if you're Maine. They are scoring goals. That's a good thing for them, but they've got to find a way to get some things right defensively and certainly in goal as well.
I mean, when was the last time that you would see these results for Boston University? 4-3 loss, 8-4 loss, 3-1 win, yes, 5-4 OT loss, 8-5 loss. I mean, those are some numbers. And granted, you're also looking at number 3 Michigan State, number 11 UConn, number 12 Maine. It's not like you're playing little sisters of the poor. But that being said, you're also got some expectations coming. You're Boston University. I mean, so you got a tie against UConn before that. So there's some expectations here, and you're not supposed to give up 8 goals. Not just once, twice. You've given up 8 goals in the last 4 games, and throw a 5 spot in there too. That there's some concern. There's a lot of D-zone coverage being done in that building too.
And I talking to BU folks before the game on Saturday, everybody was of the mindset, Yegorov has had some bad Friday nights, but he always comes back with an outstanding Saturday. And that was the case last weekend when he gave up 8 against UConn, then, shut things down on Saturday in a 3-1 win on the road. This time it didn't happen, though, and he didn't look like he suddenly solidified everything and played his best hockey. So I think that's probably one of the bigger, concerns. But I think to your point too, Derek, right now, Jay Pandolfo is just worried about picking guys up and making sure that, guys aren't getting the second and third and fourth chances that Maine got too many times this weekend.
Denver coming into the weekend, number 6. They dropped a bit in Monday's poll. A split with Alaska Anchorage, losing 4-3 in overtime on Friday night, a 6-0 win on Saturday. But the Pioneers, they have yet to take a weekend sweep at any weekend so far this season. That seems like something to be concerned about, or maybe it's indicative of some other things in general, but the Pioneers can't be happy with that.
Oh, I mean, I guess the one saving grace here, as we, just make the comparisons to Boston University and Western, is that on the second night of the series, they played really well, shut down defense, didn't give up a goal, goaltending was strong. So maybe not as much concern, but, the point you make about not getting the sweeps, this is a team that, typically can get to the front because they can go in and take 2 games in a weekend. And I go back to last week and they came out east, really played well against Boston College on Friday, and then they maybe got goalied a little bit on Saturday at Northeastern, but you still have some of those concerns when you just can't find ways to pull off the 2 wins in a weekend. Again, tough schedules at times for Denver. I think that maybe nobody realized that the Northeastern loss is probably not a bad loss. That's a really good Northeastern team, but at the same time, I think David Carl just wants things to feel a little bit more the way he expected them to be at the beginning of the season.
We always talk about Denver struggling a little bit at the beginning of the year, and then they go on like a 18 to 20 game heater, and then we're like, oh, remember that? They struggled a couple games right off the bat. Somebody like Anchorage beats them, and then they're like, oh, yeah, they beat him, and then they woke up. But what's concerning to me with looking at Denver's results is to me, I think Friday nights haven't been their best. Like they tied Air Force, shut out Bentley, lost to Lindenwood 4-3, shut out Lindenwood. They beat BC, but they gave up 3. And then they lost 1-0. So they gave up 1 after giving up 3. Then they lose 4-3 in overtime to Anchorage, then shut them out. So their second nights have been really good defensively. Every night, if you look at their second nights, they've given up 0-0-1-0. So they've given up 1 goal in 4 game 2s. And they've given up on their first nights, they've given up 1, 4, 3, and 4. So they've been a little loose their first nights and tightened it up the second night. Oh, I don't know if that's a trend that they're looking at in their locker room, but their second nights have been really good defensively since we're on that defensive zone coverage theme this week.
And Jim, I'm going to have you bookmark something in your mind for Friday's USCHO Edge podcast. These games we talked about, 6 goals, 11 goals, 9, 13, 7, and 6. So take the over if it's 5.5.
The over was hitting a lot this weekend.
We just talked about 2 teams that are going to have to, are working on D-zone coverage. We talked about Western Michigan and Denver. Now they play each other. That's in Kalamazoo this weekend. Something to watch.
Yeah, are we going to get a 2-1 game or a 9-7 game? That's, I guess, the big question right now.
9-7 the first night, 0-0 tie.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Right. If you don't have goaltending and your defense is suspect, then you got to score a lot of goals if you want to win. I mean, math will tell you that. The Gophers, before we mention the Gophers, though, who were swept by Wisconsin, the Badgers are 6-0-2, the only team with no losses in the top 20. They're at number 10 in the new poll this week. They were not considered in the poll early on. They had dropped out of it last year. So hats off to Wisconsin for turning that around. Head coach Mike Hastings has got to be very happy. They've got stellar goaltending this year. But let's talk about the Gophers. Another weekend sweep. They will drop out of the poll. They have dropped out of the poll on Monday's poll. They're now 2-7-1. However, Boston College is still in the poll, in the lower part of the poll, still in there. Just enough inertia to keep them in there right now. But they were swept by Northeastern, just a single goal, 4-1, 3-0. Lawton Zacher, who transferred from Brown, 72 saves on 73 shots. And the Eagles are now 2-4-1.
Yeah, let me start with Boston College. They're struggling right now. They're not finding the goals. They've got a few injuries right now. Yelvik and Gasso were missing on Saturday night. So they're a little bit banged up. They're trying to find a little bit of identity too. So I can start there. Northeastern, though, don't sleep on that team. Really good team. I was wondering what type of a team they would be. Did not go heavily into the CHL, stayed kind of in the USHL for most of their recruiting. That's a league that Jerry Keefe is very tied into. So I was interested to see if that would be some sort of a litmus test on, do you need CHL players to be successful in this modern game? Well, Northeastern proves that they can win with, a roster of strong USHL players. They were great this weekend. On the other side for Minnesota, and I'll give Wisconsin plenty of props, but I heard Brad Schlossman's talking on the College Hockey Today podcast last week. I was listening when I was driving up to Orono on Saturday. He talked about a game from Minnesota against Minnesota Duluth last weekend. Minnesota did not have a grade A or grade B scoring chance in the game. If that stat is true, I take Schlossman at his word that there's nobody that is better researched than Brad. If that's true, I mean, that's possibly the biggest headline of the season. Minnesota can't generate offense.
But they're just so young. I think that's the one thing that you got to remember is Minnesota is just so young. And they've lost so much. Guys left early. They got decimated with their early signings. And you look at just look down their roster. I'm looking at it right now. Freshman, sophomore, one junior, redshirt sophomore. Okay, you got a senior, freshman. Okay, then a couple seniors, but then you got freshmen. I mean, they're a young hockey team that wasn't supposed to be this young, and they got decimated. So I'm not gonna say that they're Minnesota. They should be better than what they are, but they got beat up a little bit with early signings, guys that signed that they didn't expect to sign, and now they're counting on guys that probably should still be in junior hockey, and had to come in early. Guys like Mason Moe that are doing a good job, but LJ Mooney, guys that are still young kids that are coming in playing minutes that are high leverage minutes, and there they go. But don't take away from what Wisconsin's done. Wisconsin's been pretty good, and you're going to find out what the real Wisconsin is, though, over the next 3 weeks. Michigan in Ann Arbor, then Ohio State at home, and then Michigan State and East Lansing. We'll see if they're still in the top 10 after those 6 games. True or false?
No, I think you're right.
I would go with true. I think that Wisconsin's a better team than we've given them credit for.
But you'll find out if they're what keeps them in the top with those 6 games. What keeps them in the top 10? What kind of record? 500.
500.
Yeah. I think that's fair. It's hard for me to.
And I honestly think they can go 4-2 in that stretch too.
True.
You split with Michigan State. They could sweep Ohio State.
I watched Ohio State. They're pretty good. Don't sleep on them.
They are. I've seen them too.
They should have got it better. Penn State's got something going in the third period. In the third period only. In the first 2 periods, they hang around. Like, I don't know what they got in the third period, what electrolytes they put in their drinks in the third period or whatever. But the first 2 periods they hang around, and then the third period they come out and just find ways to win. Hats off to them. But the first 2 periods, they just hang around, and then boom, they turn it on in the third period. But Ohio State was really good in those first 2 periods this past weekend.
So you mentioned unexpected early signings and so forth. I understand that, but it's hard for me to have a lot of sympathy for teams that are relying on these blue chip players who are destined to play 1 or 2 seasons and head to the NHL. They don't have to build a team that's all those guys, but when those guys are there and you can get them, you get them. So I only have a little bit of sympathy, not a whole lot.
Yes, I've never had to live that life.
No.
It's tough, right? It's and I had to ride back on a bus and get home really late, and they got to charter. So yeah, you're right. It's tough.
Well, I mean, realistically, there are only about a dozen to 15 teams tops that can really compete for those players.
Probably.
Yeah. So
that's about right. Yeah.
And so everybody else has to be creative, but then that also means other teams have got upperclassmen. And I think we're going to get into that a little bit on our Wednesday podcast. We're going to hit on some issues then. I think that might be one of them. But that's going to wrap up the first part of the podcast for this episode. When we come back, we're going to look at out-of-conference records after 1 month and see if there's anything we've learned from that. And that's when USCHO Weekend Review continues.
I'm Cole Caulfield, and I played college hockey.
I'm Adam Fox, and I played college hockey.
I'm Jake Gensel, and I played college hockey.
I'm Cale McCarr, and I played college hockey.
Whether you're a fan or a player, nothing compares to college hockey.
Welcome back to USCHO Weekend Review. Out-of-conference records after a month. I'm just going to go through the numbers here, and then we can kind of break some stuff down. But I had an opportunity a couple of weeks ago to do an interview with Atlantic Hockey America Commissioner Michelle Morgan, and AHA was off to a pretty good start. They've improved the numbers a little bit after dropping in there, and she was kind of reluctant to place too much on it that early on, but that conference right now, 16, 24, and 3, 407. which if they keep it, that will be the best that league is done. The Big Ten, not surprisingly, 32-12-4. That's a 708. The CCHA, 17-30-4. That's a 373 winning percentage. Independents, 11-30-0, 268. ECAC, 19-27-5, and that's a 422 out of conference average. Hockey East, 26-20-5, 559, and NCHC, also not surprisingly, 39-17-1, and that's a 693. And you want to go through each conference and maybe say a little bit about it. One thing I will point out about Atlantic hockey is a 9-6-1 record against the ECAC, which they play a lot against. There were 2 weekend sweeps, Air Force sweeping Brown, RIT sweeping Colgate.
I'll start with the top. And let's start with Big Ten and NCHC. They are having elite starts to this season. The third conference that usually gets mentioned in there, Hockey East, they've taken a step back. 559 is significant enough in a difference from where they were at this point last year. And realize we've probably played more than a third of your non-conference games by this point. Even though you're only a month in, I think the only ones that can really say can say that that's not true is maybe the ECAC, because you have the Ivies haven't started up really. They're just getting started. So with all of that said, you've now played a good pocket of your games, and the Big Ten and the NCHC have a legitimate lead. So much so that when we get to tournament time, if those 2 conferences take up 9 of the spots, and you only have 9-7-7 for the other 4 conferences, I'm not surprised. And we're throwing Hockey East in there, Hockey East that has had 5 in recent years. So I think that we're really seeing 2 conferences that are taking a head and shoulders lead early on. I do want to bring up Atlantic, though, because you touched on it. They've taken a little bit of a step forward, while ECAC down to 422 in winning percentage. They've taken a little bit of a step back. Atlantic is really being led by 5 teams right now. RIT, Canisius, Army, Niagara, Air Force. They have 15 out of the 16 non-conference wins for Atlantic hockey. I'm going to give you a team that we know is strong in the league, Bentley. The defending champions took Boston College in the NCAA tournament right to the final minute. Bentley, they're 4-0 in league play, averaging a goal against per game. Out of conference, 0-3, they're averaging 5.33 goals against per game. They've played some really good competition, I understand that, but that's just showing you some place where you see a real stark difference between a team that's strong in conference and they have not been strong out of conference. So it's just some data points there on Atlantic hockey. I think things are better, but when we get into will this conference get more than 1 team in the tournament, in the modern NPI, it's going to be a lot more difficult because of the fact that you really don't have more than 1 team that's taking any major step forward. You've got 5 teams that are doing well out of conference, but those aren't also the teams that are 4-0 in conference at the same time. So we'll see where it goes. I'm interested to follow Atlantic hockey this season because I think that they are the one conference that seems to be in the position to take the biggest step forward.
Well, I don't know where to go with you on there, Jimmy, because obviously I'm gonna stick up for our conference a little bit, and I'll stick up for our defending league champion, and I'll also stick up for a team that's 2-0 in league and has played 4 road games and is 0-3-1 because you threw out the 5 that are responsible. You also have to look at home and road. Bentley, you say, is 0-3. And while you were speaking, I pulled up the fact that Bentley has Anchorage at home, New Hampshire at home, Princeton at home for 5 straight home games still. So I have a hard time believing that they're going to go 0-8. I've played 4 road games. I played at Notre Dame and at Michigan, and went to overtime and lost to Michigan with an empty netter. I think that's pretty good for where my first 4 are. Now I've got Long Island at home this weekend. So I think you also have to everybody's got those issues. So I think your body of work right now is your body of work. Eventually it's going to come around, and you've got to look at look at things. So, yeah, you got to look at your record. You've got two conferences that are really good. You've got one that's probably a little disappointed with theirs in Hockey East. You got one that's probably pretty proud of where they're at. And you've got ECAC. I don't know, probably maybe a little ECAC and CCHA, which are probably not really happy with where they are. And they're going to look to improve. I think you're a little bit farther along than a third. I think you're probably closer to halfway through your non-conference. Like we've played 4, we've got 4 left. Bentley's played 3, they've got 5 left. On average, you're probably halfway through right now.
Yeah, if you think of the big pockets of time, it's that first month of the season. You get some more non-conference games, usually around Thanksgiving and then Christmas.
Yeah, so.
And then independents really are the ones that carry non-conference play in the second.
So I'll be done
playing one.
Like we play this weekend, Long Island. We go back. I'll see Ed next weekend with RIT. And then we play Lindenwood. And I'm done. So I'm done with non-conference in 2 weeks. So I'll be full into conference in 2 weeks. And that's that. I find that to be like really crazy. Here's another thing, because I was speaking to my team this morning. I have 5 weeks left before Christmas break. How about that? 10 games until Christmas break. I mean, I have 11 games until 2026. Like we're almost getting, and that's 11 games till halfway through the year. We're getting close. Like this season's rolling here. You're thinking we're November right now, and we always talk about the games in October and the games in November are the same as the games in February. We're getting going here in the season. So teams that are disappointing and not moving along, like Hockey East, it's time to go. And that's going to be a little bit of our Wednesday podcast, at least on my perspective, of teams that are doing well and teams that aren't doing well, aren't doing as well as they should. It's time to start moving along here.
I just want to add one thing. You talk about the NPI, and we're going to have to use a season of experiencing it and seeing how it plays out and evolves. But there's a wild card thrown in there that is not part of the NPI itself, but a decision made by the D1 Men's Ice Hockey Committee, and that's allowing teams with a sub 500 record to be eligible for the tournament. So you may see a situation where let me say CCHA or Atlantic Hockey, maybe they would get a second team in the tournament, but there may be, because of this strong out-of-conference record, a Big Ten team or an NCHC team, say a game below 500 when the season ends, that would edge out a second team from the other league, which wouldn't have happened in the past. And we see every year back in the pairwise days, 1 or 2 or 3 teams maybe that, or maybe more than that would have been in the tournament if sub 500 teams were allowed. So maybe the NPI will change that in ways I don't expect, but it's the same components except the head-to-head type stuff. So I expect that allowance of a sub 500 team is going to keep a second team out of one of those conferences.
I love the fact that we've been doing this. I think this is week 5 this year, and you might have brought this topic up 3 of the 5 weeks. I love that. I know what Ed's pet peeve for this year is. This is Ed.
Well, it's not really a pet peeve. It's just realistically, that's what it looks like, which feeds into your thing. And now that it's not October, we now say how much the games in November count, but the games right from the beginning of the season count as much. And I really think that this might be a year where, as we see all these splits with top 10 teams, this may be the year where those October games come back to haunt a lot of teams.
Someone will look back on October. I'm not sure who it'll be. Could it be Denver in not getting the full points out of Alaska Anchorage? Who knows? Could it, there's plenty of teams out there that are good teams that, maybe Maine's loss at home last week to Colgate hurts them down the road. There's those types of games in there. I think every year we have that. I mean, North Dakota always remembers playing Canisius twice and losing. That'll never be forgotten. So fan bases will remember that for sure.
Well, they finally did pick up a win in New York State. They're now 5-1 in their last 3 trips after getting swept by Canisius and Cornell. They got that split with Clarkson. So at least that.
You mean they're 1 and 5
Right, 1
now.
and 5 is
They're
what
not
I
5
meant.
and 1.
Yeah, 1 and 5. Yeah, 1 and 5. New York State is 5 and 1 versus them. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this week. A reminder, we also have this on video on YouTube. Go to youtube.com/USCHO or follow the links from our website. Like and subscribe and see how dapper we prepare ourselves for these recording sessions. Actually, we're not much different than we used to be. Pretty much just sitting in the same place. But anyway, for Jim Connolly, for Derek Schooley, I'm Ed Trefsker, and this has been USCHO Weekend Review.